Hello, can you hear me? Denise, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you now.
Okay. So we're waiting for some other people to come on. The the I'm actually waiting for one of my agents to come on, and I'm very excited about her because she's first off, she just had a new baby, and the and then the other thing is she is the epitome of what I'm going to be talking about today, right? So you remember Matthew Ferry?
Yes.
Okay. Have you looked him up at all? Have you watched any of his videos or anything?
I didn't watch any of his videos. I just looked him up to get a little bit of background and see who he was. And
Okay, hang on. We got somebody in the chat here. Um, okay. So I got Jacqueline's fixing to come on here. All right. Okay, I got to bring Jacqueline in. Um, let's see. Here we go. All right. Um, all right, Jacqueline, I was just bragging on you. All right.
Yeah, I
The
can hear you. You can't hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. We hear you. So I have
Oh,
Denise,
okay.
Denise Moffett. So, you know, Independence Day's tomorrow. Uh, there's You've probably seen some videos of me talking about the event that caused Francis Scott Key to write the words for the Star Spangled Banner. Okay, and just real quick, the United States kind of had unsettled business with Great Britain during the War of 1812, and the and we were losing. We were losing all over in the Louisiana Territory, and in Florida, and in Michigan, and they had uh, they had burned the White House, and they were we'd like, okay, now we need to work something out with them, and the United States was going to figure out what we could do to end this war with them. And they had their big, beautiful, brand new, state of the art ship with these new munitions that they brought off the coast of Fort McHenry in Maryland. And Francis Scott Key was an envoy for the United States, and he took his little rowboat with his men onto the ship, and they took him captive like right away. And then they showed him. They showed off. The captain of the ship showed off their new armament, and they had these. They were flechette rounds. What that means is they would have an airburst, and these smaller projectiles would blast the ground. Okay, and they were going to attack Fort McHenry with that, and the captain of the ship declared that he was going to take down the American flag that was flying over the fort. And he let Francis Scott Key and his men in their boat, but he wouldn't let them go to shore until the morning. And every time they thought they had a direct hit on the flag, they would shoot up these flares. And every time they did, the flag was still standing. And that was giving Francis Scott Key and the men in the boat, uplifting them, right? And so right there, Francis Scott Key starts writing what's happening. And there was a drinking song, and they put it to these words that he was writing about these rockets that kept going up, and the flag was still standing right at the end. And then in the morning, the flag was still there. And during the night, they kept adjusting the impact for these munitions to be a direct hit, even, right? And they weren't working. And the captain of the ship was discouraged, and he ended up leaving, thinking that they were defeated because their technology didn't work. Francis Scott Key gets to shore, and the boat runs into the fort, and he sees a pile of dead bodies, people that had ran in and held up that flag. And when that person died, somebody else ran in. All night long, they kept doing that. And that word got out throughout the whole country, and it emboldened Andrew Jackson, and he was the one that chased the British out of Louisiana, and all over the country, Americans stopped acting defeated and started kicking ass, and that's how we won the War of 1812. Okay, and so that's what we're celebrating. The date, the July 4th, was the day the Declaration of Independence was signed, but that wasn't mean we were done. There was, the whole Revolutionary War and all that. And then now to today, okay? I mean, when I was in Panama, I saw this kind of mentality during the Panama invasion with the guys I was there with. It blew my mind. Guys would run in. I mean, it was the most intense firefight, even in training, that I'd ever experienced. The ground was shaking. There was like 6 M60 machine guns, hammer down, full auto. Guys were lobbing in, with their AR-15s, shooting, 5.56, and then lobbing 40 millimeter grenades into this hangar. It was crazy, right? And guys were getting shot. Other guys were running into saving. They were getting shot. It was like nothing you can imagine, right? And I saw guys just, forget about their own safety just to help their friends, right? And this whole thing, it wasn't even our country we were defending, right? It was another country, and that we actually helped. And then I went back like 8 months later, and I got to see the benefit of all that. All these shops that were closed. The Panamanian Defense Force were a police force that were actually extorting the businesses. They were like they were like the mafia, and they were keep oppressing these people. And now the shops were open. They were bright color. There was all kinds of. I mean, it was just a completely different atmosphere going back 8 months later. Okay, and so this is what we're celebrating for the 4th of July. But Matthew Ferry, who I had on here 2 weeks ago. So originally, and this all ties together, I wanted to have Luisa Montalvo. I have known Luisa Montalvo since like 2018, and she had this ambition to win the humor speech contest for Toastmasters International, and for like 7 years she just couldn't get out of the district, and then they ended that form of competition, and it just became the International Speech Contest, and so she entered that, and because of her humor, she always wove in that humor. She ended up becoming the first runner-up for the Toastmasters International Speech Contest in 2019. And then she got into she was retired. She did what I'm trying to get everybody to do is, save their money and invest their money. And she had done that, and she had enough. She was retired, and her cause was rescuing dogs. There's more dogs, more pets are euthanized in the Rio Grande Valley of Texas than the whole country combined in the United States. And so she bought this like a little mini bus, like the special ed kids get in, and she would use that to transport these dogs. So she would go to the animal shelters and pick, get as many dogs as she could. And she had homes already lined up for them with families that wanted them to be part of the family in northern states, Virginia, Maryland, Rhode Island, New York, Vermont, places like that. And she had in 2022, she was I had dropped off some dogs in Maryland, and she was in the passenger seat. Somebody else was driving, and they got between two semi-tractor trailers. One of them jackknifed, and she died. She died for like 3 minutes. Her heart stopped beating, and she ended up waking up in the hospital. She had a broken tibia and fibia, and I was in Virginia Beach for like a month. And so I drove up on the weekend to see her, and she literally looked like she got hit by a truck, and she was a mess. I got a picture of her. And she's got traction on both of her legs, right? And they told her she'd never walk again. Well, she ended up, every time I call her, trying to make sure, I want to make sure she didn't, she had somebody, she knew somebody was thinking about her, knew somebody cared about her, right? But man, I'm worried about her being depressed and everything. And she was always so cheerful every time I called. And she ended up winning the 2024 International Speech Contest for Toastmasters International. Okay. So now she is like in high demand. Okay. She's like the only one who's ever came first runner up and then came back and won the whole thing. Nobody's ever done that before. Okay. I had somebody call me wanting to, everybody knows I'm a Toastmaster and a public speaker, and I do a podcast, and they wanted to charge me $6,000 to get into their speaking coaching. And I'm like, and who are you? I know Luisa Montavo, right? And so now she's in that place, and she's somebody. So I wanted to have her on my podcast, but she had an event she couldn't get away from. And so I had Matthew Ferry's number in my phone, and I just called him, and he texted me, and I told him what I wanted. So he came on the podcast, right? And I just think he's awesome and amazing. He's a riot. Now that's going to come into play here in a minute. And so he came on, and with Denise, and he was on the podcast, right? And I just really wanted to get some meat out of him, and he didn't give it all, right? Because he didn't, that's his business, right? And well, I started catching, because of that, now I get like feet, little shorts come up for him, right? And so I'm watching them all the time. And then Louisa came on the podcast, right? And now she's like getting to that point where this is becoming a business for her, right? And this is what she wanted all the time, right? But now it's like manifested. It's a reality, right? And she's in high demand all over the world. She's getting to the point where she can walk now. She has a little limp. She's such a perfectionist. She wants to be, not have the limp. She wants nobody ever knows she was in an accident. She's going to start going to the gym and all that. Well, we started talking about, what, I'm giving her advice like I do all these small business owners. Okay. Now, Jacqueline is an agent of mine, and she is in Kansas right now, but she's also licensed in Georgia. Okay. And she's got a background in real estate as a real estate agent also. Okay. And I am listening to the Matthew Ferry videos, and on one of his videos, he starts talking about when you're serious, when you speak sternly and uh and serious, it causes in your mind, in people's minds, a sense of alarm, and people just automatically assume something is wrong if you're speaking like that. And so he's always clowning and joking and keeping it light, right? Because when you're cheerful, right, with your presentation or your way of speaking, right? Like Louisa was every time I'd call her, right? She was always really positive, even though she'd had both of her legs broken and she was, thousands of miles from home, nobody there that she knew for months in the hospital in Maryland. And she's still just as chipper as she could be, right? And so I'm like, oh, in the SEAL teams, everybody's got a frown. Very few guys are frowny, are chipper and smiling. And there was one guy I think of, Master Chief Fred Fritsch. This guy was a Vietnam vet. And if the United States wouldn't have boycotted the Olympics in 1980, the U.S. bobsled team would have been 4 Navy SEALs and 1 Navy diver. And he was one of them, right? And he was the master chief of training at SEAL Team 4. Really funny. My mentor, the guy that helped me get in the SEAL teams, was also his mentor back in Vietnam. Okay. And we look a lot alike. We're both short, blonde hair, blue-eyed guys, right? So blonde mustache, all the whole thing, right? He asked me if I was related to this guy, Mike, right? And Mike told him to tell him that I was his illegitimate son. So for years, people in the SEAL teams thought that this well-known Navy SEAL was I was his illegitimate son going back through SEAL training, right? Because I was a boxer and all that. And but Fred Fritsch was always very positive and upbeat and jovial, right? And I loved it when he was training me. When he was training me in marksmanship with pistol and doing what's called CQB, close quarters combat, I always shot better when he was around me, right? He always, just him being there, I shot better, okay? And but I'm starting to see what this guy Matthew Ferry's talking about with the, he calls it the drunken monkey. Your subconscious, right? It was developed back, just to protect us back when the saber-toothed tiger was roaming the earth. And well, now that saber-toothed tiger's no longer in existence. And so, but that mechanism still works the same way. So it has to find things to justify its existence. It makes stuff up, right? So it's really curious, but it's scared of everything, and it makes stuff up, okay? And it puts that doubt in your mind. Now, you getting a hold of me, call me back at, you just had your baby, and tell everybody what the name of your baby is.
Royal Prince King.
Isn't that awesome? Royal Prince King. Her name is King, Jacqueline King, right? And her son is Royal Prince King. That's just like, that's awesome.
My mom named him, yeah.
The, I was like 38 years old, and my first wife for my birthday, she got a ancestry.com account, and trace my heritage, not only a guy named Stephen Hopkins, who came over on the Mayflower. He was the great grandson for King Edward the Fourth. All right. And so I didn't have this in my head when I was a kid growing up, but my son did, right? My son, thinks he's, has gone through life in knowing that he's an heir to the King of England, to the throne of England, right? But that does something.
Mm-hmm.
With the mindset of a child, knowing, they're important for some reason, right? And so that's excellent for that. But I want to tell you, I could just pick up with you. You're like, okay, now I'm ready to get going. All right. Now I'm ready to start.
Again, yeah.
You're right, right. I got a couple months ago, I reconnected with Roy Jones Jr. And he is, as part of his boxing promotions, a percentage of the profits from his boxing promotions is going to the pay for the rescue of trafficked children.
Right.
And he had his about 2 weeks ago, he had his first fight in Washington State, and now there's another one coming up here in July 11th in Dallas. And he has a bantamweight female. She's 1-0, and her opponent bugged out. And then he has a welterweight. The guy's like 6-1, and his opponent bugged out. And he calls me up, asking me if I can help him find somebody to fight these. Well, I got a ton of contacts in boxing in Texas, right? And I started hitting them all up and trying to find, and it's the craziest thing. I'm never going to complain about marketing for my business again, because it is so hard to find somebody, a female at 118 pounds that's even wanting to fight this girl who's just got one fight. She's 1-0, right? But trying to find somebody to fight this girl, is way harder than trying to find somebody who needs do a rollover or life insurance, or wants to start doing estate plan, or start planning for retirement. Okay, it's way more difficult trying to find somebody to fight these two than it is trying to find somebody. And it's hard because on one of these Matthew Ferry videos, he's talking to these people that took his class, right? And he said, all of your friends, everybody you know, thinks you're weird because you're striving, because you want to do better. You want to be somebody. You want to have success. You want to have wealth. And the majority of people don't. They just want to be where they're at. They just want to be comfortable. Okay. And I'm going to tell you that you're never comfortable enough. You're never safe enough. Okay. And things can happen overnight that are like out of your control, and they will tip over your apple cart in a minute, and it takes back. Say that again.
I said amen. That just happened to me.
Yeah, right. But you are like, okay, now like dust yourself off, like let's get going, right?
Yes.
Love that about you. I love that attitude, right? Because there's so few people. I mean, it's hard. It is, you're like, people like that, they're like, yeah, never mind. Not right now, right? And I'm like, you know what? You better start thinking about it, okay? Because if you don't, then you start breaking. I know I have so many guys that they just didn't keep up with their health, right? They stopped eating right, they stopped exercising, right? And now they can't produce anymore. They're stuck. Okay. And then they didn't save. They don't have retirement. Okay. And then people that do, oh my gosh. When I used to teach boxing before I was a Navy SEAL, that was my job. I taught boxing and physical fitness to Navy pilots and their crewmen. And of all the instructors, I was the only one that actually really competed. By this time I had like 54 amateur fights. And I could just watch the guys getting their face beat in. And I'd just go to their corner and I'd tell them what they needed to do. And 90% of the time they would do what I told them. And they turn that fight around. They turn it around. They would have the advantage the next round, right? And I'm thinking I'm the next best thing since Angelo Dundee. And I'm telling my Master Chief, and this is the Navy SEAL guy, the Vietnam vet, plank owner at SEAL Team 6, and he was a master training specialist. And he's like listening to me. He goes, the guy that's getting punched in the face has a lot of incentive to do what you're telling him. Right. And that carried with me. So when I'm sitting down with people, it's the craziest thing. I've worked out so many strategies for people getting started to take off with whatever they're doing, whether they're in the hair business or they're HVAC technicians or they're a welder or an automotive mechanic. I've got hacks for them to significantly increase their revenues, right? Because it's hard in our business to do anything with anybody who doesn't have discretionary. If they're spending everything they're making, it's hard. It's very, very difficult for us to do anything with them. And to get them to change the habits of not eating out or, not, cutting their cable, right? It's very, very difficult to get somebody to change their habits once they've got those habits going. But once they get, they get that new money, and I'll give you an example. I had a guy was graduated from automotive repair school, got a job right away, making $60,000 a year as an automotive mechanic. And he's 22 years old. He's got his own apartment. He's got a car. He's got, got his cell phone, got his internet, got his cable, got food in the refrigerator. And I called him up. He goes, man, I'm glad you called. I paid all my bills and I got about $1,000 left over. I was going to go get another tattoo. Right. And it's that like, whoa, and I could show him by putting away $650 a month into an index universal life policy, that by the time he's 57, he's got $1 million with all these tax advantages. Okay. There's, I showed somebody the other day. She's she works for her business is marketing for a hospice company. And they offered a 401k. She hadn't got started with it. I kept bugging her. She finally, we met. I helped her set up with her allocation. So they match up to 7%. I explained that's like free money. That's like 100% return just by reaching the match, right? And that's hard to beat an investment for that, right? And I helped her pick her asset allocations for that. And then I worked it out. So she's already 47. Or no, she's 52. She's 52. All right. But by the time she's 73, okay, she would have to put away, find an additional, she would have to earn an additional $1,100 a month to be able to get herself putting away 7% of that to be able to have $1 million in her 401k by the time she's 73. Now, we don't want her to have to wait that long. I want to help her make more money. She's really talented. She's musically inclined. She's very artistic. She can make stuff. She's a good cook, all these kind of things, right? But her focus isn't a business focus. She's very conscious. She wants to help people. That's why she's in the job that she's in. She likes to help people. I'm like, well, that's business right there. The better you are at helping people, the more money you're going to make. The more appeal, the more apt you're going to have clients, right? She has the right attitude for sure. Okay. And so these are things that, here's what I found. Okay. Even though, and Matthew Ferry talks about on this video, out of like 58 people or 54 people, is like one is going to be motivated to do something more than they're already doing. Oh, only one out of like 54 has a desire to do better than they're doing, has that drive to be successful. But what I found out is some people stumble into it. I have one client that I'm at a coffee shop. I switched companies. I had a nice, big, beautiful office with the other company, but I switched companies to be with Danny, and I didn't have an office anymore. So I went to this coffee shop, and I'm sitting at my computer. This guy just starts talking to me. And when he found out I was a Navy SEAL, his favorite uncle was a Navy SEAL. All right. And this is the guy he started a company, and he has these acoustic sensors that can pick up the cracks and detect the cracks in fuel cells. And his primary client database is chemical companies. There's a lot of chemical companies here in Houston. And 2022, was making like $58,000. And then SpaceX had a rocket blow up on the launch pad because of a cracked fuel cell, and somebody referred him to them, and bam, 2023, he's making 1.38 million. And that's when I ran into him. And he calls me up, tells me that he's got some employees. He wants to offer employee benefits, a 401k. He wants to do some, key man policies for them and all that, right? And so I did like 3 policies, and I'm still in the process of helping him get set up. Well, then, 2024, he's made like 1.4 million, but at the end of 2024, because of the Trump tariffs, to talk about the tariffs, the German company that he bought his sensors from made him an offer to be a partner, their U.S. partner. So now instead of sending him the whole mechanism, they send it in 2 pieces. The mechanism with the cap. As soon as he snaps it together, it becomes a U.S. manufactured product, and they get around the tariffs, right? And well, his income popped to $2.5 million in 2024 or in 2025, and he's on track to make the same. But his tax bill is over double, 3 times what he was making in 2022. His tax bill is 3 times what he was making 2 years prior. Okay, so I'm showing him by maximizing his qualified plans, 401k, profit sharing, cash balance strategies, that he's gonna save. He can put away up to $460,000 tax deferred. He'll save $170,000 a year in taxes. But because that's going to be a tax deferred plan, so money's going to grow faster. But when he takes that money out, okay, so he has to take his mandatory distributions required by the government at age 73. His distributions are going to be between 350 to 415,000 a year, depending on how well it grows, right? And his tax bill will be between 110 and 150,000 a year. And so taking 60,000 of the 170,000 we're going to save him in taxes, putting into a tax advantage vehicle, which is a policy of an IUL, right? He will have enough in tax-free or tax advantage income at age 73 to cover what he's going to pay in taxes from his qualified plans, the mandatory distributions. Okay. And so this guy is not thinking that he needs us until need someone like me, right? Until that happened to him. Louisa, same thing with her, right? It's there's most people like, I'm not really needing what you're giving me net right now because they're not making that kind of money yet. But when they do, they need us. I'm telling Louisa about this, right? And she goes, "Oh, you got this backwards. Instead of, these strategies to make these people that, just getting started, you could find one other guy like this client, right? And you'll make as much money as like 6 other people just getting started in the hair business or as a barber or, HVAC tech or whatever, right? You got it backwards, right? Now I still have this, I'm like, oh, that's brilliant, right? It's like the guy getting punched in the face. When you're getting punched in the face with a massive tax bill, they want to hear about our strategies.
Are you okay? So to be clear, are you saying that she's saying to target, not target, but I mean like, yeah, focus more on those people instead of the common news, the common small business starters and stuff like that, and you're gonna make
Well,
more with just that transaction than
yeah, think
6
about
of
this.
those, right? That makes sense, but I was just trying to be clear if that's what she's
That's
saying.
right. That's right. That's right. Okay. That's right. So when you look at who makes that kind of money, okay, what did they do? Did you know I always get business whenever I go to a professional boxing event my whole life. When I was in the mortgage and real estate business, same thing. Every time I'd go to the fights, I'd pick up business. Same thing with this, right? Every time. Okay.
Makes
Why?
sense.
Because broke people don't go to the fights. People that have money, have extra money,
Mm-hmm.
go to the fights, right? My hobby was shooting. Didn't take but a minute to watch me shoot the bullseye out of the target with my right hand, then do it again with my left hand, figure out that I kind of know what I'm doing, right? Everybody at the shooting range were people that had their own businesses. They were either civil engineers, general contractors, or people that contracted the general contractors, right? They had money and they had time to go to buy the weapon, to buy guns, buy ammunition, right? Spend the time at the range shooting, right? They all they were the people. I always tell people when you're marketing, do those things that you like to do, because odds are you're pretty good at it, right? And other people will see you doing those things that you enjoy doing. They'll see your level of competence in that, and they just overlay that level of competence in your hobby with everything else that you do. And usually people are right. If you're one way in one thing, you're going to be that way in anything else. If you're Roy Jones Sr. used to say that to me all the time. If you're a winner, you're going to be a winner. If you're a quitter and a loser, you're going to be a quitter and a loser. Okay. And it fits the, it's looking at, you've heard a lot. I don't know if you've heard anything about Floyd Mayweather Jr., Floyd Money Mayweather, had all this, billions of dollars. Now he's like broke, got lawsuits against him for not paying for, this stupid expensive jewelry he's buying and all this, right? Right. Did you know, did you know, um, do you know how they found out that Magic Johnson had HIV?
No.
He was getting his meds for his Pacific Life VUL. All right. Do you know how come OJ Simpson was able to sustain himself after being hit with the losing the wrongful death lawsuit from Nicole Brown Simpson's parents?
Guessing life policy too.
He had he had millions of dollars in life insurance policies. Life insurance policies, they can't be, the court can't get at them for litigation or for creditors. Um, they're protected. They're like the most protected asset class there is within life insurance. You can't get at them in a divorce settlement, unless you agree to it. Okay, but the court can't make you liquidate your assets in a life insurance contract. It's impossible, right? Donald Trump was going to actually end the tax advantage status of life insurance until somebody showed him that the benefit of it. Did you know who owns the most amount of life insurance?
Who?
Banks. You ever wonder why there's, my son, when he was a teenager, right? He's like, noticed that there's always these pretty girls that work at the bank. The reason there's so many pretty girls, young pretty girls working at the bank is because the banks hire young, healthy people so they can buy life insurance on them. They give them some of that death benefit as an employee. But the banks own those policies and they're packing them full of cash for the tax advantages, the growth and the tax advantages.
Wow.
Do you know, it's really crazy. If you took a penny and you doubled it every day, do you know how long it would take you to get to $1 million? If you had 1 cent today, you got 2 cents on Saturday, you got 4 cents on Sunday, you got 8 cents on Monday, you got 16 on Tuesday. Do you know how long it would take you to get to $1 million?
I mean, it'll take 100 days just for $1, right? Or no, I guess you're doubling
No,
every day. You're
no,
doubling every day.
6 days,
How many?
26 days.
What?
Yeah. Now, if you tax if you tax the growth, every time it doubled, you tax it 25%. Do you know how much you'd have left after taxes?
No.
$26,000. So do you think that there's people out there that want to find ways to pay less in taxes?
Obviously, but yeah, but at that point, she's also pretty much saying uh focus on people with big tax problems, which that's
Right,
people with big money. Yeah.
right, exactly.
So
You're correct.
that's where they need. Yeah, they at that point, yeah, they're looking for us.
I love it when when I hear the light coming on with you. Right, that funny. Yes, you got the point. Isn't that funny? That's
Yeah,
hilarious. Good for you.
I
Okay,
mean,
but
it's yeah,
that
it's a punch in the face, like you said. I'm feeling
right,
that. Yeah.
right, exactly. Awesome. Right. The Now Denise is not in our industry. Denise is a friend of mine. Right. She's a amazing Christian. Um, faithful woman. But from listening to this conversation, Denise, what are you getting out of it?
I'm just gleaning. I'm just taking in the information and processing and seeing how the advantages corporations hold and the power they hold. And so we need to take the principles in which they use and apply them and make the money in the same manner they do. So I don't know how we
So
need to make that happen, but I need some help figuring that out.
okay, so I was, I'm helping somebody else, and they like fell into all this prosperity and wealth, right? But they're over 50, they're over 60, okay? And so they're not a good candidate for life insurance,
Yeah, that's for sure.
okay? But they're just in that stage of starting a business, right? But did you know that you can own a life insurance policy on somebody that is young and in good health?
Yes, you can just hire exactly what the banks are doing. Every employee I hire, I will be life insurancing, and I will be
You'll
in
be owning the
hiring with
policy,
it
right?
young
Right,
folks.
right. You own the policy, right? And
Yes.
and so you could own the cash value in that policy, right? Okay. So the only way you can insure somebody who's not a relative living in your house is
Hmm.
if they are an employee.
That's it. Thank you,
And,
sir.
and you can get key man insurance. Okay. So this is theoretically that if they leave or they die, you've got enough money to hire their replacement. That's the purpose of it. Okay. Okay. The other is what's called buy sell agreements between partners.
Mm,
So let's say you start a business with somebody and you and that your business partner, the business, right? But they die. Okay. They Business partners will get life insurance on each other, and the beneficiary is going to be their spouse and their family. And there's an operating agreement that buys them out of the interest of the business. So you're not having to be the partner with your partner's ex who doesn't know anything about the business. It buys them out. That's what that's for. Okay.
wow.
So that's another. So those are the two ways of ensuring, basically borrowing somebody's youth and good health, okay, to take advantage of these tax strategies, even though you may have had cancer or you may have be, not in the right, your age keeps you from, you know, your health and age keeps you from, uh, the cost of insurance is too high. You're too much of a risk. So hence the cost, you're not going to get the growth in the policy as if they were a young person. So those are these are the things that most people don't know. Most people in the industry don't know. Most people in my industry don't bother taking the time to help a small business owner get started with the 401k and the profit sharing and the cash balance strategies. Now, I don't make any money helping a business get started with their 401k and the profit sharing. But the cash balance strategies, we can't. We can make money, right? But then there's that, what do they do to deal with that tax burden when they need the money the most, when they've retired? That's when we can, that's, we do those supplemental policies with the tax advantages to help them with that. So it's seeing all the way down the road with them, and that's what we do. That's what I'm training Jacqueline to do. Okay, so she can, knows what she's talking about when she's talking to people. And I got Danny and I got Martin and Manny that can help me, with the different strategies. And that's where I've learned all this stuff from, from them. So any feedback, Jacqueline?
No, just some mind blowers that I just learned, and yeah, and she's right because she's that it's important for her to for us all to learn these ways and get those strategies in play as soon as possible. And I feel like that's our responsibility as we live in this industry that we're in. That's our responsibility to help educate people and get them in the right direction before it's too late, you know, including
Well,
ourselves. So
listening to people like Matthew Ferry, right? And there was another lady, Bridget Krause. She was actually ran the John Maxwell Speakers Club when Luis and I were part of that. And I would listen to her. She invited us to this. She was a keynote speaker, right? And so she's trying to get people to sign up to become, on the John Maxwell leadership training thing, right? And she starts going, why should you do this? I don't know, right? I mean, how, but you got to look at your life, right? I mean, are you getting what you want, right? I mean, are you in traffic for, every day? You got to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. You're up and out the door before you even know you're awake yet. You got to have coffee, before you can even start thinking right, and then you got to be stuck in traffic for half an hour every day on the way to work and on the way back. And, then you go to work and you're there with people they're not happy to be there either. And the boss is looking at you with a frowny face and scowling at you. And then, and if that's what you like, that's fine. But if you want to do something different, right? So what she does is she gets people to look at their situation and become not and see the dissatisfaction, right? There's something that was said: the seed of all doubt is comparison. Okay, and
that's
when
strong.
and when people look around at somebody, they like, listen, that guy's the same age I am. They're they're not any smarter than me. They're not better than me, but their situation's better than me. Why is that? Okay,
Knowledge.
that's right. That's right. And that's what you can offer somebody. So the keep up the cheerfulness, right? You've got that voice, right? Just like Louisa, right? Stay positive, right? Don't be, you know, you've heard people say, don't be too smart. Okay. You know, make it fun, you know, make it a game. Like when that somebody came to the office and talked about that, a penny doubling every day. I literally like, really? I actually did the math right there during the meeting, worked it out in longhand, did the math to figure that out. Right. And I'm like, that's just crazy. Right. And, but it was comical to me that I had to do that. for it actually sunk in to me, before it actually was real to me that that could happen. Now I don't have an investment that gets 100% return every day, okay, but there's that tax, that bite out of the tax. The average person is like 25% is what they're paying on the average. There's significant ways you can reduce taxation, with a business. Okay. And so with that, you can, there's things that you do every day in the line of work, for your business, that because you're doing it for your business, you can write it off. Eating lunch, right? And
Yeah.
you give a card to the manager. I'm going to go this weekend. I'm going to go watch the fights at Bombshells. I've been trying to talk to the manager at Bombshells. We've been trying to get together. So now I got an office. I have an office now. All right. I'm going to do a video this week, showing my office. It actually cost me less than the plug-in fee at the other office with the other company. And it's a nicer, more private. It's my own office for my appointments. It's not office share or trying to sit, take somebody in the conference room when I got just one person or two people, right? I got an office I can take somebody to. So I'm going to be
That's
doing a
good.
video about that this week. And
Before time ends, I didn't catch what does Denise do? I know you said she's not in our industry and she does hire people, but I don't know if I missed what she does.
At the moment, I am actually fixing to. I just put together some business plans. I'm starting some family businesses with a couple of individuals in our family, and we are starting food trucks. I'm doing rolled ice cream and coffee. My daughter is a cook and she's done culinary arts. She's going to be doing food. We want to set up multiple on our property and have the main house utilized for when bad weather, the places to eat inside, and remodel this. We want to get out of this home and put it as a business. It's on the highway frontage. It's an excellent business property. It's a horrible living space for private residents. So we want to transfer our property to commercial. And so we've got a planned date in the future. Hopefully, one Friday over the next 3 weeks, we'll be getting together so that we can discuss all the initials in the beginning so we can set up right. I want to get all of our goals out to him so that he can give us guidance. And all this information is tidbits of knowledge that God is giving me to prepare because I am kingdom minded. I'm about God's business. That's the only
Mm-hmm.
business I'm about is my Father's business. Uh,
Uh-huh.
these are the last days and it's harvest time, and so everything I want to do I want it to be in line with the Word of God and for the sole purpose of bringing glory to His name. So that's my desire.
Well, that's beautiful. Yes, all glory to him. Thank you. All right, and that's beautiful because the food industry never is leaving, so that's real high demand. And yeah, you're feeding his children, so you keep going.
Thank you. Food for the
Congratulations.
body while nourishing the soul. That's the ultimate
Amen.
goal is and provide worship and prayer. People need that more than anything right now. What can I pray for you for? And let us worship the King.
tell you what, why don't you
Amen.
pray it out? We got,
Ah, yes. Why, sure thing. Father, I just thank you, Father, for Jacqueline and for Reuben and for everybody that may be listening or will listen in the future, Father. I just pray that your wisdom, that we are seeking your guidance, your direction, for us to be in complete alignment and be about your business for your kingdom and your glory here on earth as it is in heaven. Father, we long for you. For 250 years, we've enjoyed freedom, and that freedom is found only through the blood of your Son, Jesus Christ, at that cross. Let us recognize our divine providence, that it is you where our help comes from, for the government rests on your shoulders, Jesus Christ. That is who we seek, that is who we cry out, and that's the very presence we seek to bring to this earth through love. Love is how we bear witness to your name. Let us love each other so that we may give your name glory and honor and praise in all we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
perfect time.
Amen. Amen.
All right, so I'm gonna end this, and then StreamYard's gonna produce the video, and it'll cut it up in little clips, and I will send them to both of you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Bless
All
you
right,
all. Bye.
happy Independence Day.
Yes, sir. You too.
Back to you. Yeah.